What's up, everyone? This is your boy DJ Wiz Hoffa back again. Shout out to all my fans and supporters. This is Faces of 518, episode 15. My guest today is actually a SUNY Albany grad. She hails from Brooklyn, New York, and she's in a special position. She could be the first black woman to be elected to the Albany County Legislature, and she's actually running for Albany County Legislator of the 6th District of Albany. Today, I got a special treat for y'all. Racquel Saddler is in the building with us today. What made you want to go to SUNY Albany? Because I know SUNY Albany is considered a great school. Even though, for those of us that are here, it's just SUNY Albany. But when you live in a different area of New York or even a different area of the country, SUNY is pretty prestigious. What made you want to go there?
So it's a number of reasons, actually. First and foremost, my mom was a SUNY Albany grad. She was an EOP student, too. So I was always going back to Albany with her whenever she would go for class reunions and things like that. But also, I was kind of not involved in, I would say, but I visited Albany a lot because of caucus weekend. So every February, members of the Black, Puerto Rican, Hispanic, Asian Legislative Caucus would get together, or the association would get together to host a weekend where members from across the state would address issues facing marginalized communities. And from a very young age, that was like my first foray into dedicatedly seeing how elected officials gather together to make a difference in the lives of the communities that they serve. And I knew that I wanted to get involved in politics. I knew I wanted to go to school for politics, and I was kind of grappling between Washington, D.C. and Albany. And the main reason why I chose Albany was because, I was familiar with the area and it was close enough to my parents that I didn't feel like I was too far, but I still had some semblance of independence. Mm-hmm. So that was really what made me choose Albany. And also it's the capital of the state. So where else could you get a better experience in politics than that?
That's true. And I think it's a great thing that you decided to stay here, because in present times, a lot of people are graduating and they're like, I got to get out of here because there's nothing to do. But hopefully we going to change that. We turning the lights back on, right?
Definitely. Shout out to Mayor Dorsey.
So your mother was involved in politics, which is where you caught the bug from. Tell me some of the things that your mom was involved with.
Yeah, so she was a politico before I even knew what the word politico was, right? Mm-hmm. So when I was in the womb, she was going to political events, whether it be fundraisers or organizing events on behalf of elected officials in the Brooklyn area. She was chief of staff for, a couple of council members, for New York State senators, and through those experiences, she was able to really become a stronghold in the community, especially when it came to protecting seniors. That's really her bread and butter. She loves making sure that seniors are able to age with dignity and that they have access to resources. So I kind of always saw her as not only an advocate, but someone who had the information to guide people towards resources that would give them a better opportunity at life. So yeah, that's my mom in a nutshell.
That's dope. And going back to the caucus, right? I have to speak on that a little bit, because I just remember you were lucky, because I just remember every year when I was young, my mom and both of my parents worked for the state. So every year around that time, it would be all this talk, the caucus. You know what I mean? And my mom would have on her best clothes, and my dad would have on his best suit. And
let me guess, they both had mink coats.
My mom had a mink. My mom had the fur coat. They would be down there doing it big. And I just remember maybe them speaking about places like Tavern on the Green, mm-hmm. and these types of places. And like, I used to always have to be with a babysitter or something, because the caucus was like a big thing. So you actually got to like kind of go and experience it a little bit?
Yeah. So one of my first caucus weekends, I think I was 6 or 7, I have a picture with me and Hillary Clinton. And I just went to and this was at the gala. And
You probably was there the same year as my mom because she got a picture with Hillary
was she
Clinton
wearing a black
from
dress? Because if she
Um,
was, then probably yes.
I'm not gonna lie to you, but my mom has a picture with Hillary from the caucus.
I love that. I love that. And I think it's interesting because a lot of times when I'm in the halls of the Capitol now, I see members bringing their children around from like a very young age to everything. They're going to committee meetings, they're going to fundraisers, they're going to events. And I think back to the time when my mom was carrying me everywhere, and that wasn't the norm. My mom, I was like her purse, her little pocketbook. So I really experienced caucus from a very young age to kind of see the impact that elected officials have and how strategic a lot of these elected officials have to be in their advocacy in order to really move the needle for the communities that they serve and do so in a collaborative way.
So after you got involved with politics, tell us some of the things that may be considered notable that you did in the political space to get you where you are now.
Sure. So as soon as I got to SUNY Albany, I was like, I'm not going to party too much. I kind of want to make sure I hone in on all the skills. I've really always been very
You on the board?
focused. Huh?
You on the school board? What were you doing?
I wasn't actually going to say I was the deputy director for legislative affairs. But I always knew that I wanted to set myself up for the end goal. And the desired end goal was to be like a counsel or, a legislative aide for an elected official. So I went up to the Hill, and this was my freshman year, and I was like, I will intern for free. I will do whatever you guys need me to do, but I just want to learn. And that's really it. I have no end goal in this moment, but to learn. So I was an unpaid intern working about like 25 to 30 hours a week from my freshman year up until I want to say the end of my sophomore year, the beginning of my junior year, because then I got an internship with the governor at the time, which was really great. And then in the extracurricular activities, I was deputy director of legislative affairs, where we held the first voter registration drive that was on campus. And during that event, we registered over 500 students on campus to vote. And the Mayor Sheehan came, a lot of the local elected officials came, and it was really empowering to be able to be a part of a group of people that were helping students who maybe didn't know the impact that their vote has, especially in the Albany community at the time, to just empower them with the knowledge and education to help make a difference in the community.
And so you've been here for 16 years. For the people that could possibly be wanting to vote for you, what is it that you love about the city of Albany?
I love how vibrant the city of Albany is. I love how passionate and how community oriented a lot of the people are. You walk through the neighborhoods from, speaking about the neighborhood that I would like to or the neighborhoods that I would like to represent, from downtown proper to the South End to the parts of Arbor Hill to Pine Hills. I think there's just abundance of community, abundance of love, abundance of wanting to collectively strive to be better that I really appreciate. And I even got to see that even more. I was on the Tulip Court in 2016, and being able to go to all of the places, the Teresian House, like there's just a lot of places in Albany that just celebrate the culture and just celebrate the beauty that is the city.
I think that was a great answer. I want to know what being an intern in the White House under the Obama administration was like.
Well, yeah. That was maybe one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. And I think I had many really pivotal moments that shape who I am as a person professionally and also personally right now. At that time, I felt like the federal government was a lot more calm, even though a lot of people would disagree with that. So
Yeah, true.
maybe, but I think the type of leader that President Obama was and the way that he carried himself was something that I admired really deeply. So to see that measured sense of leadership in person almost every day was just something that I could never even fathom that I would be able to even experience in my lifetime, right? Like swiping in and out of the actual White House was just something that was just incredible. And one of the quotes that I really live by right now is one that, came from President Obama. When I asked him, I was just like, what advice do you have for a young person who wants to, pursue a career to make a difference? And he's like, well, I'll tell you this. You don't run for office. You don't go to law school. You don't do anything in this life to be somebody. You do it to make a difference. You don't want to be somebody. You want to help somebody. And that's how I've really shaped my entire view in terms of service and advocacy and really shaping better futures, not only for myself, but for, people in general.
My cousin is a big wig in politics in the Maryland and DC area. So does being in DC make everything more grander? Like being involved in the political process in actual Washington DC, does it make things more grander? Is it like, like damn, I'm in the White House, like I'm where it all goes down. Did you feel like a more of a prideful sense, like being able to have that opportunity,
I think so.
especially under Obama?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think the specialness and the reverence for that opportunity was exacerbated so much more by virtue of it being President Obama, who, if you don't know, then you're missing if you don't know, then I don't know what you're talking about. But he's the first African American president of the United States, and I think it was an honor to just be a small part of that administration. And again, like watching how he was measured in a lot of the things that he was navigating with, one of the key issues that the nation was grappling with at that time was not only the Keystone Pipeline, which was just, a huge thing, but also My Brother's Keeper, which is a program that trickles down and is still around in the localities, super important. But I do say, earlier I said that I was grappling between going to DC or staying in Albany for school.
Mm-hmm.
And the impact that you have on the state level when you work on the state level and more locally
Mm-hmm.
is a lot more apparent than it is on the federal level. So it's more grand, but it's a lot more removed from the people.
Okay. And as we'll put it out there, as a future Albany County legislator, tell me what some of your jobs and duties would actually be for people just in layman's term who don't understand what an Albany County legislator does.
Sure. So, and I think that's actually a great prompt because a lot of people sometimes, as I've been talking to neighbors and kind of getting to know people better and going from the neighborhoods within the district, a lot of people talk about potholes, and it's just like, well, no, the county doesn't deal with potholes, right?
Mhm.
As a legislator, you deal with a lot of the services and the things that touch the person. So, I was legislative counsel for Senator Valmanette Montgomery, who was a chair of children and families. So in that role, we dealt with a lot of dealing with people in crisis, whether that is people who are addicted to drugs, kids who are in crisis, as in they're skipping school or they're hurting each other, they're hurting themselves, some of the most vulnerable populations. So the county really oversees a lot of the money that goes to those essential programs to help people have better access to opportunity, among other things. But that's kind of like the main umbrella.
And you're running for the 6th district, which is what area of Albany?
So that is the South End, downtown proper, Arbor Hill, and just great neighborhoods that are at the precipice of a lot of transformational change.
Explain to me, just keep me in the loop a little bit about the actual redistricting. Like, tell me what actually happened. Like, what was redistrict?
Yeah, so the district looks a lot different than it did a number of years ago. And I think approximately 10 years ago, maybe a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And when the redistricting happened, it was very intentional. It was a lawsuit by, a number of people who saw that there could be an opportunity for a person of color to represent the district. And while that did not happen, my predecessor, who is now the chief city auditor, Sam Fine, who is an amazing guy, I love him tremendously. They still have not had the opportunity to have a person of color who's elected be in the seat. So I'm really excited to kind of, step in at this juncture to add my expertise and, my desire to make a difference and effectuate change in the community.
And so in this particular race, do you actually have um, an opponent? How does that work? Is there anyone else running for that position?
As of this moment, I am the only one on the ballot.
Okay. All right. That's dope. So what we're saying is it's basically a shoe-in.
From your lips to God's ears.
I ain't mad at that.
And I will say too that, when we think about neighborhoods like the South End, right? The South End in the 1920s was a hub for cultural connection, cultural connectivity. It was the hub for vibrant economic and just, it was just a thriving hub. I think over time there's been, economic circumstances, like broader economic circumstances that have created a shift. And I think that there have been a lot of leaders, both in the community and elected leaders, who have fought really hard to bring us back from that. Because you think about the Great Migration, a lot of Black people were migrating to the South End and they were thriving here. Small businesses were thriving here. Working families were thriving here. And I think over time, we're working really hard to get back there. But even though that's happening, when I've been talking to people from every neighborhood in the district, a number of things are certain where people feel like they need more enhanced attention to public safety, to access to mental health services, to things that basically are tantamount to economic stability. So I really think that, this is at a time where I'm really happy to be at a place where I can help to step in to fill in the gap and to just add to what has already been done in great strides to help the community.
You know what's interesting? I know somebody who is deeply, who deeply cares about what happens in the South End, specifically because that's where she was born and raised and still resides. And she's one of the people that spoke to me about you, although she didn't say your name, but she just let me know that there was a promising young woman that was running for the county legislator's seat in that district, and it was Dr. Carolyn McLaughlin.
Yes.
Have you had an opportunity to cross paths or with her in any form or get any knowledge, mentorship? Because, she's an OG
Yes,
in this political
100%.
game.
Yeah, so I know I may be a little long-winded, but
No, that's fine. We got time.
I'm gonna start the answer to that question with an anecdote.
Okay.
I know I mentioned earlier I worked for Senator Valmanette Montgomery for a number of years, and at the time that she retired, she was the oldest serving member the longest serving member of the New York State Legislature, which means that she had experience, she had knowledge, and she was one of the trailblazers who allowed people who came after her to get a little further than she did. And when I think about Dr. McLaughlin, that is how I view her, in the sense that she is a trailblazer. And one of the only reasons why I could be sitting in this chair now talking to you,
that's a fact,
is because of women like her who stood up and karate chopped the glass ceiling to pave a way for us. So I have had the opportunity to talk to her and to kind of gain a little bit of knowledge from her. And one of the things that really resonated for me that she's told me, over the past couple of weeks, because, we've been talking, a little bit more as this process has progressed, and it's to remain true to who you are and to stay above the fray. I think sometimes I can think, okay, maybe I need to talk about this or do that. But sometimes it's okay to just listen. and to just come to a measured conclusion before you do something. And I think the third thing that I would say that she's told me that I really let, you know, govern how I operate, especially in this moment in time, is that it's okay to disagree, but I think that it's important to do so in a way that doesn't sacrifice the ability to create and curate relationships and actually effectuate change in the community that you want to serve.
I can agree with that. Can you name me, I guess, 3 black politicians that really inspired you? Maybe 5.
Okay, so given
Because you
my
know this is a black show.
this is a
just
black
for
show,
y'all don't
100%.
know.
Rooting for everybody black. Shout out to Issa Rae. Um, but I'm afraid that if I mention 5 or 3 or 5, then I may leave somebody out. So I'm gonna do my best.
Okay.
One is, and I don't know, do you know the first black mayor of Atlanta? So his name is Maynard Jackson.
Okay.
And he not only was the first black mayor of Atlanta, but he was the first black mayor in the South. And the way that I try to be intentional about everything I do.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've learned from Maynard Jackson is the fact that representation isn't the only thing that matters. So me telling you, you know, if elected, I'll be the first the first woman of color to represent the district. That's not it. The buck can't stop there. The buck has to be attaching the representation to something lasting. So it's not just for me. It's not just for you. It's for my kids. It's for my kids' kids. Creating that institutional and statutory structure to be able to succeed, you know, for generations to come. Secondly, I would have to say our great Attorney General, Letitia Tish James, who is a trailblazer. She is a fearless leader. She is just the quintessential example of what it means to be unbought and unbossed. So love her down bad. I've learned from her over the years, from even before she was a city councilwoman. And I really appreciate her mentorship and her guidance. I would say the New York State Majority Leader, State Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins out of Westchester. I had the pleasure to intern in her office when I was in college, so I saw her measured leadership up close and personal. And we've maintained a relationship over the course of the years. So when I told her I was running, she was just like, okay, that sounds about right. So, you know, definitely her. Definitely New York State Senator former New York State Senator Valminette Montgomery. She really gave me the opportunity to intern with her for free to becoming a paid member of her staff over the course of a number of years. And then I can just name off a couple of people who I get the same sentiment from. Assemblywoman Latrice Walker from Brooklyn. Former Assemblyman Arthur Eve. Just a lot of trailblazers. Yeah.
And so you got some big shoes to follow. And I would say generally in especially in Albany, like, kudos, because, you know, black women, y'all are kicking ass right now. Y'all kicking ass and taking names, and it's so good to see. I also wanted to ask you about lobbying, because I believe I heard that you used to lobby, that you were a lobbyist.
Yeah, so I'm a lobbyist now. And to be honest, I did not necessarily, like, life works in very interesting ways, because when I was working for the senator, I always said I would never want that job. Like, being a lobbyist seems like it's very difficult. And it was a lot. So when she decided that she was going to retire, I had to kind of like figure out what I was going to do next. And there was a lobbyist, a black lobbyist. And for those watching, I'm not sure if you guys know, but you know, the lobbying profession for a very long time has been very historically white and very historically male.
Mm.
So there were not a lot of black people to kind of look up to at that time. So John Wright was definitely one of them. And he was one of them because he only represented, with the firm that he owned, he only represented nonprofits led by people of color. So, he walked up to me in the Dunkin' Donuts. And if you know the Capitol, you know the Dunkin' Donuts where all the lobbyists hang out. And he's like, "You're going to work for me one day." And I'm like, "What is this guy talking about?" No, I am not. um, and lo and behold, once the senator retired, I ended up going to work for him, and I was representing nonprofits, solely nonprofits, for the entire time that I worked for him until his passing. But what I learned from that experience would just underscore the fact that nonprofits are really the crux of our communities. And even if you think of the different nonprofits that are very prevalent in the 6th legislative district, A Village, the South End Children's Cafe, um, those nonprofits, among others, are really the ones that are the backbones of the community and really the ones that help children who are in crisis, who help people who are in crisis. So that experience, lobbying in that way, really helped to solidify my desire to, one, always root for nonprofits over everything, and two, how to effectively advocate for people in need. Actually, right now I'm sitting on the board for the Kings Against Violence initiative in Brooklyn, which helps to bolster um, programs for gun violence prevention in the hopes to kind of bring some of that here. Because I think the last guest that you had on was from Snug Albany.
Yes, actually, yes, Pesci.
Yes.
And I actually this weekend I think I saw some pictures. Yeah, I know I saw some pictures with everybody outside for the event, and I saw you in a picture with him and I think it was Gabriella. So you've been
Yes.
out there on the
Yes.
pavement, and how could you guys help organizations like Snug? How do the two cross each other?
Yeah, so I think a very important thing to note is that working with the county is obviously not just in a silo, right?
Mm,
So you have to be willing to have that cross governmental relationship between, the city, the state, the federal government. And I'm very fortunate that, through the career path, and even the educational path that I've decided to take, has led me to create deep rooted relationships with, people from, different governmental branches. So me and the assembly member, we went to law school together. And very often, every time we see each other in these spaces, it's like, oh my gosh, like, did you think our first weekend of 1L year that we would be here? The answer is no, but also yes, because the entire time during law school, we were both, advocates. Assemblymember Romero with the Student Bar Association, and myself with the Black Law Students Association, doing community events and just making sure that we were advocating for those who need it the most. So she's incredible. But to directly answer your question, it's about looking at the funding, looking
mhm.
at how we can leverage state dollars. Right now we're in a pinch with the federal dollars, but how we can maximize state dollars rather, to really help empower the communities that are on the ground. Because as you know, in Albany, there is an epidemic, and it's what you would call a health crisis. So we have to figure out how we can get these guns off the street and make sure that people who have access to guns have the resources so that they don't feel like they have to resort to gun violence um, in general.
I think we also share another friend in common too. I'm pretty sure you know Miss Tabitha Wilson, right?
Yes, I just voted for her. Well, that when this airs, I would have voted for her last week. So she's a member of the school board. I think she's the
I
vice
want to give a
president.
big congratulations to her.
Yes,
I was
congratulations,
definitely
Tabitha.
happy to hear that because I've known Tabitha since she was like wee high.
Oh my
Yeah, I
gosh.
was very close friends with her older brother. So
Incredible.
and we all went to grade school together. I think Tabitha may be a year or two different from my sister. So
Mhm.
both of us as brothers, we had two younger sisters in the school, and that's what we shared. You know what I mean? And so I know Tabitha's family and her upbringing, and I'm definitely proud of her grind and the work that she been putting in. So hopefully, she's good. And that's what I was saying about y'all kicking ass right now. Like it's not a game. And how do you think that's important, especially right now having a female black mayor?
Mm-hmm.
How important is that type of influence on other young black women in business or in politics to see people in political position that look like them?
It's incredibly important. I first met Mayor Pleers in 2017 when I was working on Mayor Sheehan's reelection campaign. So at that point, I had just finished being a tulip. And, I talked to Mayor Sheehan and I was just like, I would love to help out and, get involved locally. So I did a lot of her community outreach, some of the event planning, and really getting to know the community. And that's when I met Mayor Pleers for the first time. She was running for city council. And I knew from the moment that I met her that she cared. It wasn't just about advocating for the ward that she was trying to represent, but it was just about making sure that everybody had access, everybody had opportunity. And I think now, fast forward to, right now, where I was able to help her out on her campaign and be a small part of her immense win, the sentiment never changed. It just was on a more grand scale. And while at the time running for office wasn't really on my mind, seeing her reaching and ascending to those heights just really solidified for me that, I can be anything I want to be. As long as I know what my why is and who I'm here to represent and who I'm here to advocate on behalf of, the sky's the limit. So she really is a change agent. I could not be more honored and more proud to know her, and to have worked with her and seeing her on the campaign trail too. Like she is incredible, and I'm very happy to see what she's doing and how she's handling herself with such grace and such poise, and measured leadership in what she's doing.
That's dope. Moving into your position, what do you think are some of the biggest issues that the community would want tackled, specifically in District 6? Because
Yeah,
these are some of the things that you're gonna have to have input and make decisions and help make decisions on.
definitely. I think before I directly answer that question, I
Mm,
will say that, as I mentioned earlier, there are people in the community and there are elected officials who have dedicated their lives to doing what they can to move the community forward, and we've made a lot of progress. However, talking to neighbors, I think, and whether it's downtown proper or in the South End,
mm,
um, they seem to be expressing the same kind of concerns, right? Whether that is, the fact that there's a little bit of a food desert in the district, the fact
mm.
that we see people who are in need of mental health services. We see people who
True.
are in need of housing. There are a lot of unhoused people. We see people who um, want access to better economic opportunity, to affordable housing. I think that there is a desire to reimagine um how the county addresses the influx of new opportunity by way of the $200 million. Shout out to Assembly Member Romero and Senator Fahey for their advocacy for that, but how that money is spent and how it's used to have things happen with the community and not to the community. So I think from a high level, those are the main issue areas that we're going to have to tackle. Um, you know, if God's willing, um, I'm elected to the seat.
We've been talking about the 200 million for so long now that I didn't realize that we didn't get it yet. That's how long everybody been talking about this $200 million. What's some of a couple of things you would like to see happen underneath that budget? or
So
that you think need to happen?
yes, so I definitely think projects in the areas of transportation should definitely be at the forefront in terms of access to, the downtown of the city. In addition to that, I definitely think finding ways in which we can use the money to empower nonprofits is something that I would really look forward to see because, as I said before, nonprofits are the entities that really are the backbone of our communities. And even if it's not directly, even if the money isn't given directly to nonprofits, finding ways to envelope nonprofits into the projects that end up being approved as part of the $200 million, I think would be extremely helpful. Really, anything that helps to empower the economic growth of the district would be very helpful because, in my mind, and I don't think that this would be lost on anyone else who's interested in the development of the district, but to bring the South End back to the economic hub that it was in the 1920s is what I would hope would come out of that. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that now, even ahead of the $200 million, because there are a number of projects that are in the works right now, specifically with the Mason Hall and affordable housing, Lincoln Towers, the Sunshine School, which is a little bit out of the district. It was in the district at one point, but I still think that's an honorable mention, where we can really see the silver lining or the light at the end of the tunnel to help really start this paradigm shift and this transformational change for the district. So, with all of that said, right, you said we haven't seen the money yet, but I think it's really going to take a leader who is experienced, who not only knows government, but knows a lived experience of the people who live in the district to be able to move that money and to Dr. McLaughlin's point that, I try to live by, operate in a way in which talking about how this money gets spent or what happens doesn't sully relationships and can cause the ability to foster relationships and move the community forward. So whatever happens, happens with us, not to us.
Mm. You mentioned the Mason Hall, and I was just interested to know um, what's on the table with that. Are they talking about what they're gonna do with the property? Or
Yeah. So what's public right now is that they're going to be affordable housing units. So it's mixed use. So I think some affordable housing, some just regular units, but then also with the potential for commercial space.
and so they're gonna renovate that building.
Yes. Yes. And I
Uh,
think something to know in terms of empowering, people of color, not people of color, empowering Black people to revisit that economic status that we once had in that district is that the developer that is doing that is a person of color. And the person who is doing that is also someone whose family has a storied history in that district, specifically with the Mason Hall. So it's a full circle moment. When we talk about bringing Albany back to what it used to be, I think projects like these with developers like that is a step in the right direction. I'm really happy to be a part of, what's going to happen with that.
so when you lead that district, for many people who don't understand how the districts are split up or the wards, right? How far past the McDonald's does you start at the South End and you go all the way to where?
So, do you know where the Family Dollar used to be?
Yes.
Which also that is there has a potential to become a gym, which I think would be even more incredible, as another project to help enhance the neighborhood. But a little bit past the Family Dollar,
Mm-hmm.
and then it goes all the way down to the Warehouse District. So do you know where Lock and Key is, or not Lock and
Yeah,
Key?
so you mean coming into North Albany almost.
Yes.
Okay. So around Lock and Key.
It's like North Ferry.
I would need another reference point. I'm supposed to be from Albany too. Um,
um, you know where Nine Pin is?
yes.
Right there.
Okay, so it would stop right there.
Yep.
Oh, that's okay.
It's very long, but then it's narrow because it's like it goes right in front of City Hall,
Mhm.
until it gets to Lincoln Park. Then it's all of Lincoln Park, and it goes a little bit. I think it's Catherine Street, for that part of where Lincoln Park is, and then it
Mm.
comes back down, and it's like all of Morton, and then Board of Elections, and yeah. So it's an interesting district.
So all the way to 9 Penn, the warehouse district. Um, when people ride by there, you just see a bunch of buildings. Some of the little areas look kind of seedy, or some streets where you're like, why would I turn down that street? What do you think needs to happen in the warehouse district, if anything, to kind of, I don't know, um, to be an area that has more things going on down there?
Well, I think there are a number of things that are happening right now that kind of contributes to that. So there are, as we enter into the summer, there are a lot more community events that are happening, that kind of are bringing people down there. I think the bars and the locations themselves are having a lot more community based events, and I think that's it. What I'll also say is, in comparison to last year and even more so the year before that, the
Mhm.
population of people who are moving into the warehouse district, who are moving in on Broadway, is growing exponentially. So there's a lot of development going down there too. So there are a lot more people coming to the district, which is exciting.
No, I definitely I'm not far from there, and I feel like as far as the bars and restaurants that are down there, it's kind of a cool place to be because they're kind of spaced out. It's like they have their own breathing room. Nothing's on top of each other.
Hmm.
So, I mean, if I'm being totally honest, some of those places don't seem like places where we're really welcomed at, but you know, that's just my opinion. Um, so what would you like the people to know, and why should they vote for you?
Well, I want the people to know that I am excited at the prospect of being able to be a representative, for the 6th Legislative District. I have lived in Albany for a very long time, and I love the community. I literally walk the entire district pretty much almost every single day, except for when I can't get out of work because of the budget, which I think at the time that this airs, we will have been done with, or on the cusp of being done with it, which is over a month late, but that's neither here or there. Um, I'm really passionate about the work that I do. I spent a long time in and around politics to know what works, and to know how to know the system first and foremost, and to know how to navigate the system in a way that really helps to effectuate change. Change is not an event, it's a process. That's what, my pastor from home says. And I am really excited to embark upon this journey by, number one, listening, and two, doing what I can to be a part of the system in a collaborative way that effectuates change and that adds on to the greatness that's already being done.
How important do you think it is to show your face in the community? Because to be honest with you, I feel like we're in a period of time where I've seen politicians out and about with their boots on the ground more than so past years. How important it is to be in connection with the community and the people that you serve, and is this just is this because I'm gonna say this is something that I feel that's growing. Um, seeing politicians um in the communities and shaking the hands, kissing the babies, people actually um being able to facially identify them and know their names. How important do you think that is?
It's extremely important. And I say that because one of the main things that I learned when I was working for Senator Montgomery is that in order to be successful, as if you don't even call yourself an elected official, you call yourself an advocate. To
Mhm.
be successful as an advocate, it's about meeting people where they are. And when I talk about people in crisis, sometimes I have to take pause and say, it's not just people, it's we are in crisis because I'm included in all of that too. You know what I mean? A lot of the things that I want to fight for are things that I also want to benefit from. So I think it's about meeting people where they are, and you cannot do that without being in the community. You can't do that without talking to the people who are impacted. You can't make an impact if you don't talk to the people who will be impacted. And if you walk into the city mission, if you walk through Lincoln Park, if you walk down Morton Avenue, if you walk down Broadway, if you walk down North Pearl, walk into some of these small businesses like Sugarfoots or Alley B's, and you talk to them and you figure out what their needs are and how their lives can be better from your advocacy, that's the only way that you can seriously make a difference. Because at the end of the day, the people who are going to walk into that booth, yeah, they may vote based on voter recognition, but they also need to vote because they know that you are going to fight for them. And I will say, too, without rambling, that advocacy looks different. And sometimes you can be the loudest and you can scream at the top of your lungs and stand on the front lines and try to put the fear of God into people. But at the end of the day, if you don't know, one, if you can't present a solution, my my boss at my job at Mercury calls me Solution Saddler. If you're making noise without a solution, then it's just like the Bible says, faith without works is dead. But if you also can't know how to sit in a room and disagree with people in a measured way that leaves room for ultimate growth or to achieve the ultimate end goal of your constituents, then you've lost the mark. You've lost the mark.
You are pushing my buttons right now.
Yeah.
But anyways, well, I must say, like, this was a dope conversation, and I feel as though for those in the 6th district, they're gonna have somebody that's really gonna represent for them. And I'm glad that it's a black woman. Can't lie, gotta be biased, you know? It is what it is. Cause people be like, oh, why do you gotta talk about black and white?
Look, there's
why
never
do
a
you gotta
world in which we do not talk about black people. So yes, I'm very.
It is what it is, but I believe that some of the people that have to stand and help make decisions for these specific areas need to be able to identify with the people in those areas and identify with their needs. So I wish you. So is there a primary or what's happening right now?
So no, there is no primary, but I will be hosting some community events
Mhm,
across the district over the summer.
mhm,
There will be a general, so the push is to get as many people as possible to get out and vote. And I think to that point, one thing that kind of speaks to your last question
mhm,
about getting involved and being on the ground is
mhm,
the educated voter is so important, especially in a district like the 6th district. Because at the end of the day, being informed and knowing one, who you're voting for, and
mhm.
two, what you're voting for, um, is the crux of any community. And sometimes, to be honest, I wanted to do a campaign that wasn't just my campaign for office, but a campaign to educate voters, a campaign to uplift voters so that they feel empowered to get out to the voting booth and vote, because it's very important.
That's what's up. So y'all get out there in November and vote for Racquel Saddler. We're glad to have her on the platform, and I'm sure that she's going to continue to be a force in the community, in the county legislature, and we'll probably see her back here at some other times talking about some other big things that she's got going on. So, once again, on Faces of 518, we thank you for tuning in. Shout out to my sponsor, JGI Media. We're at how am I going to forget the address this time? Um,
Highland?
That's right. We're at 1 Highland Avenue, Albany, New York. You got any podcast needs? You need photography, videography, studio recording, mixing, mastering. You need a cyclone wall. You need a video. You need a mini movie. You got a band. You need to record. You need to record a band. We got everything you need here. One Highland Ave, JGI Media. So thanks, Racquel, for stopping by. It's been dope.
Thank you so much for having me, and look forward to seeing you guys in the community.
All right. And shout out to all my followers and supporters. Signing off with Hoffa, Faces of 518, episode 15. We out.